Hi everybody, it's Carrie Williams, and today in this video I want to talk about facilitating productive discourse. So this is basically a fancy way of saying implementing classroom discussions, but it's with more of a purpose. And we have productive talk that we try and promote in the classroom so that we can arrive at a goal of the discussion. So I'm going to share with you a few resources that will help you do this. The first one is a document by Open Syed. It's called Three Discussion Types. So really there you can classify the three types of productive discourse in your classroom into three discussion types. The first one would be initial ideas. And this would be basically getting students' initial ideas out on the table for public display. This is a great form of pre-assessment to see what ideas students are bringing into the classroom. And it also helps support students who have some ideas, but they're not sure how to talk about them. You can help support them in really forming those ideas and being able to talk about them. The goal of an initial ideas discussion is to really say, okay, we know some things, but realize that we've got gaps in our understanding. And the driving question board is an excellent way to do this. We have all these questions. We definitely have some things to figure out. And this helps to promote curiosity and a need or motivation for learning because we can see that we don't know everything. So this is really shifting from that learning about where the teacher just lectures and disseminates all the knowledge to a classroom community where we together figure out how to explain phenomenon or how to design solutions using science ideas that we are grappling with and we're talking about in our productive discussions. The next type of discussion is building understanding. And a building understanding discussion means that you've already done a learning activity, that there's been an investigation that's taken place, there's been some research or some type of learning activity where some science ideas were developed. And then we share our claims, we share some explanations, we base them on evidence from our investigations or from our information that we obtained. And we really can connect our ideas together, we can critique, and we can build on each other's findings as well. So the goal of this is really to arrive on tentative conclusions about what we know. Now, I say tentative because we may still revise our thinking, but at this point, after this investigation or after this activity, this is where we are right now. This is what we figured out. So it's a building understanding discussion. The third one would be a consensus discussion. So coming to consensus. So a consensus discussion means you want the whole class to agree and come to consensus on either how to represent something in a model or what our next step in an investigation should be or what question we should investigate next. So whenever you're trying to get classroom input and have them agree on something, this would be a consensus discussion. These can be pretty big discussions. They also help to resolve disagreements and differences in perspectives. And they really support that taking stock of what we figured out and supporting the fact that we're revising our thinking from earlier. And the goals might be to create a consensus model, again, figure out what investigation to do next or what question to investigate next. So there is a document from Open Syed you will see also listed in my blog. It's actually a reference page J from Open Syed, and it talks all about supporting classroom discussions. And this provides strategies for implementing discussions such as leveraging the think, pair, share we've always used in the past, but we use it for more equitable purposes so that everybody can share their ideas. It's hard to listen to everybody's ideas in a class, but if you put them into pairs or groups of three, they share with each other. Everybody gets a chance to talk and share their ideas. And then you can have one person from each group share out. So it helps everybody have a chance to talk. There's also some more information on how to make that participation equitable in that document. But first, in order to do this, you're going to have to build a classroom community where students feel safe to participate. And this takes a little bit of time. I do have another video that I'll be making on how to build norms in a classroom and how to really reflect on those norms to push forward in our classroom community of learning and help support each other and keep it respectful. You have to do something like that. Otherwise, students are going to feel they're going to either lack confidence and not want to participate, or they're going to not feel safe and not want to participate. So once you get everybody feeling safe and feeling confident, then they will participate much more. This document also provides a description of how to use the discussion planning tool and reflection tool. And I've also provided that tool actually in the resources, in the links of resources. And what this does, it's especially for teachers who are a little anxious to implement their first productive discourse classroom discussion, or it's a big one. You really want to make sure you reach your goal, whether it be coming to consensus or figuring out where you need to go next in a lesson. So this planning tool is really helpful in thinking about not only what you do before the discussion to plan, what you're going to say during the discussion, and then it comes back and helps you reflect after the discussion. And reflection is really the only way we can grow in our craft of teaching. So it supports you in reflecting and really thinking about how this went and how we could do it better. So remember, this is a new instructional shift. We're going to struggle with it. It's not always going to go well. And we're going to have times where we're like, yeah, that discussion didn't go where I wanted it to go, but that's okay because you will get much better. And once you've done this same discussion multiple times, you know how to guide it a little bit better to get to the goal that you want. It also provides some questioning strategies, some example questions on how to elicit thinking from students, how to probe their thinking, and how to clarify their thinking. So, a wonderful document called Supporting Classroom Discussions. Now, all of this really is based on the research that can be found in the Talk Science Primer that was published in 2012. And two university professors collaborated with many different classroom teachers, and they did a research project that they really broke down what is productive talk, the elements of productive talk, how to establish a culture for productive talk. So if you want to know where all of this kind of comes from and where OpenSci got their resources or where they adapted them from, this is the resource. It's called the Talk Science Primer, and it's worth a read if you have the time. So there are four main goals that are laid out in this Talk Science Primer. And the next resource I'm going to show you, there's a couple resources out there, but the next one I'm going to show you is how OpenSci adapted it. So here we have the productive talk goals and moves. It's basically a way to observe a classroom teacher, but you don't have to do it in observation style. Just look on the left column. These are the talk moves that once you really can memorize these, you can help that discussion go really, really well and get to the goal the way you want. So the first goal is helping individual students share and express and clarify their own thinking. And so one way you can do that is a talk move saying, oh, can you say more about that? What do you mean by that? Can you give an example of that? So once you have these talk moves in I call it in your back pocket, the conversation just flows and you're just probing them to help them really clarify their own thinking. Sometimes I have a little cheat sheet. If it's hard to read this, I might put on sticky notes like little talk moves until you get used to them and you basically memorize them and you just pull them out when you need them. The second goal is to help students listen carefully to one another. This is really important because a part of the discussion is also making sure we have effective listeners. And so one way to do that is you ask, can you rephrase or repeat what that other student just said? Also, if a student wants to say, oh, well, I think the same thing as them, you say, okay, that's fine. Just give them credit and then repeat what they said. So they don't get away with saying, oh, yeah, I agree with Sabrina. Instead, you say, yes, I do agree with Sabrina when she said, and then they have to say the science ideas. So not only are they really forming them and developing them for themselves, but they're also giving credit to the other student. So that's a great way to help them listen to one another. It also helps students when they aren't sure what to say, they can kind of tag on to what someone else has said. The third goal is really to help students deepen their reasoning. And so you might be asking them for evidence to support whatever they just said. You might ask them, so what's your evidence? Or how did you arrive at that conclusion? You're going to really deepen their thinking. And the other one would be challenge or ask for a counterexample. So, does it always work that way? Can you think of an idea that is opposite of that? Or does this idea square with so and so's example? So, these are ways to really help them deepen their reasoning. So, the fourth goal is really to help students think with others. So, you might be asking them to add on to what someone else had said, or do you agree or disagree with this person? And then have them explain their thinking. So, these talk moves help you really facilitate that classroom discourse so that it's productive and you get to the goal that you want. So, this next resource is a resource for students. Just like you need a little support in facilitating productive discourse, and those talk moves are wonderful for teachers to use, students may lack confidence or may not feel safe in sharing their ideas or don't even know where to start. So, this is an excellent resource. There are 13 different discussion types or scenarios that students can use with sentence frames or sentence starters. So this really helps with equity in that it helps everybody participate. It brings that playing field up to be more level with those that are more confident. And you can put this as posters around your room, or you can even put it in their science notebook. So it's the front of the science notebook. Just open it up. They can use it when they want. Eventually, you're going to get so good at facilitating discussions that you won't need your talk moves to prompt you, and students won't need these sentence frames to prompt them. So that's the goal, that we really all grow to either be effective at facilitating discussions or effective communicators and listeners. This final resource that I'm going to share is a way to help students be metacognitively aware of their participation in a discussion. You'll see that this rubric is split in half. The top half is for those bigger discussions, consensus discussions, gallery walks, if they're sharing to people as they come by and they're sharing what's on their poster. So you would use that top portion of the rubric if it was a larger discussion, and the bottom half of the rubric would be for smaller settings, group, small group, or partner talk. So this is a great way to help students understand your expectations for what they should be doing, and also helps them grow and reflect. So remember, we can't really grow without reflection. So here is your tool to help students become aware of what the expectations were, how well they did, and how they can do better next time. If you see something called a scientist circle, if you're unaware of what that is, that means you take all the students and you move them to the perimeter of the room into a big kind of circle or around the outskirts of the room. And they can bring their chairs if it's feasible in your classroom, or you can potentially have them stand. They don't need to move desks. That would be too much time. But this is when they move. So the teacher can very easily keep track of who's participated because you're going in a circle. You can see the partnerships really easily. And also, they're all looking at one another. So it builds classroom community. We're all having a discussion together. And once you've established the routine of a scientist circle and you've built those norms and that classroom culture that everybody participates, we respect each other, we build on each other's ideas. When they move to that setting, it almost triggers a sense of, oh, I know how to act in this space. So it really helps with classroom management. So I'm going to leave it here because that's a lot of information to go through and a lot of resources to look at. But I think, and I hope that if you use these, you're going to feel more confident in facilitating classroom discussions and really helping you reach the goal of the discussion that you are intending to reach. So good luck, everybody.